Hello, I'm Adam Barralet and welcome to August 2022. Bit of a tradition here on my YouTube channel now that I like to do an astrological forecast each month to let you know what's going to be happening so that you know how to prepare, and I also give you guidance on which gifts of nature, which crystals and essential oils you can use to navigate through the energy shifts of the month. Now, hope you're doing well wherever you are. It's pouring of rain here in the bushlands of Perth, Western Australia. So again, I'm inside, but that's okay. We're going to dive in and look at what to expect wherever you may be in the world. Now, the first bit of good news is that compared to the 5 retrogrades we had in July, it's going to be a bit smoother sailing, although we do have a couple of retrogrades happening that I'll tell you about in just a moment. Our first significant thing that will be happening is on the 7th of August. Now, this depends on where you are on the planet because it's a cross-quarter solar celebration. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're in the southern hemisphere, this is the midpoint on the 7th of August between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. This festival is known as Imbolc, and it translates to mean sheep's milk or ewe's milk. And it's kind of the time of first light. You'll start to notice the days are getting a little bit longer. You may start to see some baby animals popping out of burrows or nests and that type of thing, and maybe some flowers just starting to blossom. It'll still probably be quite cold, but day by day, the days are getting longer and the sun is getting stronger. So we're kind of bringing that warmth out. This is a really great time to focus on the third eye chakra. Why? Because we've been in winter, we've been sitting in that crown chakra, very introspective and quiet. And what do I want to do in my life and why am I here? Now we bring it down to the third eye chakra, and the third eye chakra looks at what are we here to do and how do I do that in this physical reality? So working with your indigo crystals and like your third eye chakra essential oils are going to be really powerful at this time. It's also a time where I like to put candles in my eastern windows with all my solar crystals to bring in the sun and the sun's blessings and prosperity and warmth into my home. I'll also get outside a little bit more, looking at the wildflowers as they come up, learning their names and learning any magical properties that I can find about them as well. So it's about starting to get the cogs turning after the cold winter. It's not quite the time for action, but it's a time for contemplation. So what have I chosen to work with at this time? Well, for everyone in the Southern Hemisphere, the crystal I'm recommending is Dumortierite. Now it's a bit of it may look quite dark, but it's a dark blue crystal. And when we think of dark blue crystals, we think of that third eye chakra, and a lot of people mistakenly think that all these crystals are going to be helping the intuition. Not so much with Dumortierite. Dumortierite is very good at helping you to focus more. And there are so many distractions in everyday life and what's happening in the world right now, but we need to get you back on track with what you're here to do. And Dumortierite's really, really great for that, for keeping distractions at bay and keeping it on point. Pairing that with a beautiful third eye chakra essential oil, Basil essential oil. Now, Basil essential oil, our ancestors used to say that it helps to put a scorpion in the mind. And I love that analogy of this real focus and this real kind of intent on what is important. I love basil whenever I'm feeling exhausted. I use basil, I use it in cooking. I'll pop a drop in water with some lemon and spearmint. I'll anoint it on my adrenals, and this really helps to lift me up. It's often when I'm trying to be everything to everyone and you end up exhausting yourself. Can you relate to that? If you can, then basil's going to be really great because it helps to narrow our energy and our focus on only the important things, what we truly need to do. We give ourselves these long to-do lists, but are they all going to be serving you on what you're here on this planet to do? Make sure you're having some fun as well. So if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then Basil and Dumortierite are my tips around the 7th of August. Now, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's not Imbolc, it's another festival known as Lughnasadh. This is named after an Irish god named Lugh. Now, he was a king, a warrior, an artisan. He was very crafty, very musical, and brings that kind of energy into Lughnasadh. Now, Lughnasadh is obviously the midpoint between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. You're slowly going to start noticing now that the days are going to get shorter and cooler. But there's still a lot of warmth around. And Lugh, being the celebratory, very musical and artistic god, it is about celebrating the harvest. So this may be, if we look back in agricultural terms, this is when they'd maybe harvest some of the grains and some of the fruits and so on. But it's also a time when we look at our own harvest. We've been out there, we've been working, we've been socialized, we've been making new contacts. How do we enjoy them? This is a really great time to focus on the sacral chakra. How do we use our harvest to be creative and make the most out of what we brought in? And how can we deepen those relationships with the people we've met during the summer months of this socializing as well? So working with the sacral chakra can be really beautiful. It's also a great time to consider where, from my harvest, from the riches that I've earned and what I've reaped, how can I give back to those less fortunate? How can I maybe donate to a charity, or better still, go volunteer at a soup kitchen or an animal refuge in one way? So we want to really get into that creativity and that enjoyment of all that hard work. We often move throughout life of work, next step. And Lughnasadh is a really great time to just chill out. It's great to light a bonfire, hang out with some friends, read some poems, stories, play some music, have a jam session, or go and see some artists and kind of be inspired by the joy and the pleasures of life. That's a real big essence around Lughnasadh. So looking at that joy, the two crystals, or the crystal and the oil that I've chosen, first of all, we've got beautiful sparkling Sunstone. Now Sunstone, of course, this is a solar festival. It's where the sun is in relation to the earth. This is a really great one for bringing joy, bringing vibrance, bringing energy. So hanging out with Sunstone will help you to bring that joy into your life and help you deal with anything that's stopping joy come into your life as well. Complementing that beautifully is wild orange or sweet orange essential oil. This is going to be a really nice one for helping you work out what does bring you joy. What can make you feel really good? And it may just be dancing by yourself around your home with some music that you love. Great thing to do around Lughnasadh. Bring that joy back into your life. If you think that the Creator gave us this whole buffet of experiences to experience, and if we're not diving in and relishing and enjoying them, then that's discrediting or dishonoring the Creator. Get out there and have fun, and Lughnasadh reminds us how to do that. So those will be happening on the 7th of August, depending on whether you're on the northern or the southern hemisphere. Next, we have our full moon. We go into the lunar cycle now, so from sun to moon, and this is happening on the 12th. On the 12th of August is our full moon in Aquarius. Now, if you've been watching these videos for a while now, you would have probably learned from me that Aquarius doesn't just represent a 12th of the population that were born at a certain time, but it also represents an aspect of our life. What does Aquarius represent? Our humanitarian aspect. Now, if you're an Aquarian or if you know an Aquarian, you know that Aquarians, they're an air sign, so they're in their head, they're thinking about what they'd like to, what would make life better for themselves and for those they care about and the entire world. And so when we lean into the Aquarian energy, what we do is we lean into how do I shine my light brightly and make this world a better place? What can I do for my community, or what humanitarian efforts can I bring forth that will make this world a better place? I like to nickname this full moon the full moon of the light worker. You may have heard that expression before, and often spiritual people call themselves light worker. Are all spiritual people light workers? Well, I know plenty of spiritual people that actually will complain about other people, drag other people down, not honor other people, and almost lower the vibe. A light worker is someone who brings light, love, laughter, hope, faith, joy, all those uplifting kind of attributes into life. A light worker doesn't have to be spiritual. I'm sure you know some lovely people in your life that may not be that spiritual or work in the spiritual field, but they just bring more joy. How do you make this world a better place? Is the question we ask ourselves on the full moon in Aquarius, and then convene with the universe and Mother Moon and go, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. Please bring me experiences and I will make sure I'm ready for those experiences. So, the crystal that I've chosen to work with on this full moon for everyone is Herkimer Diamond. So Herkimer Diamonds are not actually diamonds. They're a type of quartz that's found in Herkimer in New York State. They're not found in New York City. You're not going to find them in Times Square unless there happens to be a crystal seller there. But what I love about them, first of all, is they have great clarity, and that's what they're renowned for. And so when we have clarity in a crystal, it helps us with clarity in our mind. We can't change the world. We can't make the world a better place if we don't have clarity. And Herkimer Diamond helps with that. It also helps with transformation because we can't go forward if we don't know where we need to go forward to. And so Herkimer Diamonds help with that. As a quartz, they help to amplify our intentions. So great around the full moon, whatever you decide to be and how you're going to shine your light and make a better world in one way or another, this will amplify those intentions. And what I love about Herkimer diamonds is, as compared to normal diamonds, diamonds need man's work to be made beautiful and sparkling. A Herkimer diamond comes out of the ground just like this, already beautiful. So Herkimer diamond teaches us to help work with how life just unfurls and not try and push against it or work against it, to go with the flow. So a beautiful one to work with around that full moon. You know, the full moon's on the 12th, but the 11th, 12th, 13th, I'm going to have my Herkimer diamond around. The essential oil that I'm going to pair with that is Neroli essential oil. This is gifted from, there's a lot of orange this month, you'll notice as I'm talking. This is gifted from the bitter orange, not the sweet orange tree, but from the blossoms. This is orange blossom oil. This has a history of enticement and beckoning us out of our comfort zone, going to something better, to something more pleasurable. Nymphs would use the scent of neroli to beckon young men and women out of their bedchambers at night into the forest for a night of pleasure and ecstasy. Newlyweds would scatter neroli blossoms on their bed to help them relax on their first night together. Meanwhile, ladies of the night would be using the aroma of neroli to seduce their client. And even Cleopatra anointed neroli along with jasmine essential oils on the sails of her ships as she sailed up the Nile to go and seduce Mark Antony. Neroli has also been found in studies that when we inhale it, it actually helps with lateral thinking and thinking outside the square. So, as the Aquarian, and that Aquarian energy is very quirky and alternative, then neroli helps us to think outside that box, to get outside our comfort zone and make this world a better place by doing things differently, by being the change we want to see in the world. Following this, we have our final major planet going into retrograde for this period. So on the 24th of August, Uranus, some people call it Uranus, Uranus goes into retrograde. So Uranus is a really interesting planet because all the other planets, as they dance around the sun, do this, like a spinning top. Uranus rolls more like a ball. In fact, Uranus is, in mythology, he is actually a castrated god who had his testicles ripped off him by his son Saturn or Cronus and thrown into the ocean. And that's what Venus or Aphrodite actually was birthed from. Interesting. But Uranus has always represented alternative lifestyles or thinking outside the square, being a little bit different or queer. And so Uranus, when Uranus is going direct, he helps us to keep changing our lives and transforming our lives and keeping it different. It keeps us out of that mundane. So what happens when a planet goes into retrograde? It takes its influence away. So you're going to find your life get stagnant. And what tends to happen around this time is we tend to get a little bit frustrated. Nothing's happening. And what you might start to wonder is, what am I doing with my life? What am I meant to be doing? Am I in the right job? Am I with the right partner? All the different questions come up. And if you don't contemplate them at this time, you'll start to get quite frustrated. So I'd really encourage you to sit with these questions and start to wonder, what should I do? Uranus is in retrograde until the 22nd of January. So as we get into the new year, and for those in the Northern Hemisphere, this is great because you'll be coming out of your winter. It's time to start 2023 with how you want to change your life. A retrograde is a time for contemplation, and when it goes direct, we then act on those contemplations and what we've actually decided. So this can be a really beautiful thing to do with Uranus in retrograde. Also notice that those that aren't contemplating these questions and wondering what they should be doing with their life, if you're not thinking about it, you'll just feel unsettled and restless. So be aware that there may be some people feeling a bit like restless, on edge, and even have emotional outbursts for kind of no real reason, except when you know what's happening in the heavens. To help us with this, I'm actually going to stick with the Herkimer Diamond. It's interesting because Uranus actually is the ruling planet of Aquarius. So we've got a real, let's make this world a better place, let's think outside the square, let's evolve and transform. So I want to keep that real energy of thinking outside the square, transformation, clarity with the Herkimer Diamond. I'm also going to encourage you to keep working with the neroli essential oil, but we're going to use another essential oil as well that is also from the same tree, the bitter orange tree. That's Petitgrain. Petitgrain is not from the flowers. It's not from the fruit either. It's actually from the leaves and the twigs. And it's very similar to lavender in its chemistry. Very, very relaxing. Now, before we can grow fruit and before we can grow blossoms, we need branches and leaves. And so Petitgrain represents foundations, what we need before the beautiful and the great and the transformation can come. Petitgrain helps us to calm down, to make sure if we're going to change our lives for the better, that we give it some time to think about it. And that's exactly what we want to do during this time. We set up a plan, we're clear on where we're heading, and then we action it, rather than rushing in. You know, the opposing sign to Aquarius, it's Leo. And Leos will act now, think later. Aquarians tend to think now, have a little bit more of a think, have a bit more of a ponder, and then they'll actually act as well. But that can be good in moderation, and so Petitgrain will help you in that. Following that retrograde that happens on the 24th of August, 3 days later on the 27th of August is our new moon. We start a new lunar cycle. This is a new moon in Virgo. So Virgo represents our physical health and well-being. Now, many of us believe ourselves to be healthy, but what I like to ask whenever we have a new moon or a full moon in Virgo is how can you up-level your health? What would you give yourself out of 10 for your sleep, for your diet, for your exercise, for the amount of water you drink, for the amount of fresh air you breathe, for the amount you're reducing your toxic load, all those different aspects of things? I bet you wouldn't give yourselves 10s across the board. So, where can we up-level? And that's what we contemplate on the new moon in Virgo. Now, whereas we kind of do magical workings and get right out there and get into it on the full moon, the new moon's a time of contemplation. Sit down with a journal or a book, think to yourself, what would I like to do? What could I possibly start doing to help me to up-level my health? How do I bring my sleep from a 6 to an 8? How do I increase my water intake from not very much to a little bit more? Little things like that are what we kind of contemplate during this time. To do that, the crystal that I've chosen is black tourmaline. Now, does it have to be this big? No, I'm just showing off today. But black tourmaline, as you can see, it grows in these shards, and you can see the lines in there. So it kind of works like a bodyguard and helps to remove things that stop us from our path. If we aren't healthy physically, it can really hinder our journey on this planet. And so we want to make sure that we clear away any obstacles. Black tourmaline helps with that. It helps with understanding. It helps us to be more present and to be present in our body and aware of what our body needs. Black crystals are great to work around the new moon, and so I'm really recommending that people lean into black tourmaline around that time. The other thing is, remember that although I just said life is a journey, I don't like to think life is a journey because that means there's a destination where we'll get to and then we've done it. And that stops us enjoying every single day. I heard this great analogy that more so, our life is a work of art. It's like a painting. And what we want to do is we want to keep on adding more light and more shade, and the darkness will help to bring out more colors to our life, different experiences in that way. We want to honor where we are, but also be interested to try different things and to expand. This is where Cassia is going to be really great around this new moon. It's an oil that is governed by Virgo, plus it's got this real kind of angelic cuddle about it. Although you may want to up-level your health, maybe you want to lose some weight, maybe you want to shift something in your appearance, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough now. And Cassia loves you for who you are, then gives you the warmth and the energy to evolve from there. If you don't come from a point of love, then, you're not enjoying this moment. If you're hating how you are, it's good to have that contrast and be clear on what we don't want so that we can move to something else, but embrace yourself today. Don't wait to get somewhere before you embrace yourself. And so Cassia will help with that. So black tourmaline and Cassia are really good around the new moon. Hang out with them, sit outside with a cup of tea at night, sit in the darkness and contemplate, how can I up-level my health? Now, the final thing happening on the final day of August is Sedna retrograde. This is not going to make a major impact on everyone, but you may feel a little bit of it. Sedna is a dwarf planet found way out in the icy depths of our solar system, 3 times as far from the sun as Pluto. Sedna is named after an Inuit goddess who is the goddess of the sea and all the animals that live within the sea, especially the mammals. In her mythology, she was thrown overboard and lived in the water she's thrown overboard by her husband and then continued to live in the water, and that's why she's the goddess of that. If you look at her mythology and you go and read her stories, what you'll see is there's this whole story of victimhood and being the victim and being punished and being mistreated. But what Sedna teaches us that we're all discriminated against, whether it be because of our age, our race, our gender, our sexuality, our opinions, our lifestyle, our belief. People, pick on us for one way or another at one point in time, and that can cause suffering. But just like Sedna, who, when she was thrown into water, became the goddess of the water rather than drowning in the water, well, how can you claim who you are and realize that only you can oppress yourself? It doesn't matter what people say about you. It's about how you let their words impact you. In fact, those things that oppress us and make us feel a little bit beaten up and troubled, they're our vulnerability. And we all go through that in one way or another. But if we share that vulnerability, it can actually be something we can be proud of. It can cause connection and intimacy with other people who have maybe been on that journey. No one gets out of this life without any suffering. And so we all suffer. And sometimes when we can find others to share that with in a trusting manner, this can actually be a strengthening experience. The crystal, so if you start to feel a bit like a victim, and a bit like, oh, poor is me, and past hurts start coming up again, what you can do is you can look at how is that a source of strength. You may want to look the asteroid number or the astrological body number on if you jump on astro.com, you can actually see where Sedna was when you were born. And her number is 90377. Look that up. For me, she was actually in Taurus, which means I'm gonna have this I'm always gonna feel around money that it's not fair. Everyone else has more money than me. Money comes more easily to people. Having that awareness can be quite empowering to make sure I don't get stuck in that kind of mindset. Hemimorphite. This is a raw piece, and this is what it looks like when it's kind of polished. Beautiful, and has almost these aquatic lines in it. So it has that kind of watery energy like Sedna does. But this being a throat chakra or crystal really helps us to express ourselves, helps us to share these things and to overcome that adversary or that kind of victim mentality, and to realize that it actually can be a blessing, the past hurts that we've had, because it shows us who we truly are and what we are and what we're capable of, especially when we reach out to others. Essential oil wise, I'm going to lean into Siberian Fir. Siberian Fir lives in, Siberia, Mongolia. You find a little few in Turkestan and parts of northern China. Covered by snow most of the time, minus 50 degrees Celsius, minus 58 Fahrenheit, very resilient tree. And remember, snow that it's covered by most of the time is like white light. It kills off what doesn't serve us, the old and the weak, and brings new life when it melts. And so Siberian Fir brings in that energy of getting rid of that mindset that you're a victim, that woe is me, and feeling sorry for yourself, and being reborn, emotional liberation. So be aware that around the 31st of August, if you start to feel a little bit weak and like a bit of a victim, that's why, and you want to lean into that and work out how to embrace your weaknesses. So to summarize, on the 7th of August, we've got either Lughnasadh in the Northern Hemisphere or Imbolc in the Southern Hemisphere. Did I say that right? Lughnasadh in the North and Imbolc in the South. On the 12th, we've got our full moon in Aquarius. On the 24th, Uranus goes into retrograde. On the 27th, new moon in Virgo. And on the 31st of August, we have Sedna going into retrograde. There'll be a summary in the description of this video, but now you know what the forecast for the month is, you know what to expect. I've given you some crystals and oils to lean into. With the crystals, wear them, carry them, have them around your space. With the essential oils, get them in you, on you, around you, however you can use them safely and appropriately. If I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. Enjoy August, and I'll talk to you with the next forecast next month. Blessed be.